there's a lot of, frankly, loose talk about some of these military options, and let's just call a spade a spade. A no-fly zone begins with an attack on Libya to destroy the air defenses. That's the way you do a no-fly zone. And then you can fly planes around the country and not worry about our guys being shot down. But that's the way it starts.
I'm not endorsing it.
And
I'm
it
just
requires,
wondering.
no, I understand, but it also requires more airplanes than you would find on a single aircraft carrier. So it is a big operation in a big country.
In other news, a judge in Lahore has ruled that a CIA contractor accused of killing 2 Pakistanis will not enjoy diplomatic immunity. Raymond Davis maintains he acted in self-defense. The case has strained relations between the U.S. and Pakistan and inflamed anti-American sentiments there. Meanwhile, 9 people have been killed during a suicide attack on a police station in Pakistan's northwest. Officials say a lorry carrying explosives rammed into the building in Hango district. Egyptian security officials say 3 people have been killed and 10 injured in clashes between inmates and police at a prison north of Cairo. The jail's director was also injured. Thursday is the last day for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to launch an appeal against a decision by the UK High Court. He is to be extradited to Sweden to face questioning on sexual assault allegations. Assange denies the accusations. The British court gave the go-ahead for Assange's extradition last Thursday. Those are the headlines. The news continues on Al Jazeera after Riz Khan. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome. Why is rape still being used as a weapon of war in the Democratic Republic of Congo in spite of peace deals between the government and militia groups? Africa's deadliest conflict has cost an estimated 5 million lives, and violent abuse continues to be used as a weapon to intimidate, punish and control. The DRC's military court found a commanding officer and 8 of his men guilty of committing numerous rapes in a town earlier this year, a decision marking the first time any high-ranking commander has been held accountable for such crimes. And while many in the international community praise the ruling as a milestone, it has done little to comfort the large number of women dealing with the trauma of sexual violence. Today we ask what can be done to provide real protection against rape crimes in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Send an SMS or an email to the show. Well, I'm joined by 2 guests who are very familiar with the horrors of war in the DRC. Joining me from Paris is Eve Ensler. World-renowned feminist and activist, her organization has recently co-developed City of Joy, a shelter for sexually battered women in the DRC. And from Oslo, Norway, we have Marcus Bleasdale, an award-winning photojournalist who has spent over 8 years covering the DRC conflict. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show. And Eve, I have to start with you. It's great to get you back on the show. And it's sad, though, that, you know, a couple of years on, we're still talking about this subject. We talked before when you were launching your campaign, Stop Raping Our Greatest Resource, Power to Women in the DRC. And it seems things certainly haven't improved since then. They're worse, if anything. Why?
Well, I think the basic fundamentals haven't changed very much. We still have many outside militias, whether they're from Burundi or Rwanda or Uganda, waging war, fighting a war inside the Congo on the bodies of the Congolese, particularly the bodies of the women of Congo. And I think that basic problem, that basic structure, that basic exploitation of minerals that continues, and where militias are used to control the mines and exploit the minerals, that hasn't changed. But I'm a little more optimistic than I was before, and maybe that's because I just came from the opening of City of Joy, which is an extraordinary place, opened by V-Day with the Pansy Foundation and support from UNICEF in Bukavu. And the opening was a very, very exhilarating and positive moment after many years of horror and atrocities. And I have great faith in the women of Congo. I have great faith in the women. And I am seeing, after years now of working and struggling in movements inside the Congo and outside the Congo, women in the diaspora and women inside the Congo, women activists activist leaders have really been building a movement that is really taking shape and taking form. And I think women are finally coming into their power and voice.
But Eve, let me ask you what you make of that recent conviction of that high-ranking commander and 8 of his men for crimes of rape. And I wonder what real impact you think it might have there.
Well, I think the fact that anyone's been arrested and anyone's held accountable is a good thing. Seeing how many people have been raped, what we're up to, an estimated 500,000 women have been raped in the Congo. So, of course, it's good. The question is, what will happen to this person? Will he be kept in prison, which is a huge question, because we don't see people often staying in prison. And if he is kept in prison, what will the consequences be? And how will that be exposed? And how will that affect other people? I mean, I think those are all huge questions. But I think anybody being arrested at this point, or an end to any minutia of impunity, is an excellent thing.
Right. Marcus Bleasdale, you've won numerous awards for your work around the world, and I know you've spent about 8 years working in the DRC and have seen up front the horrors taking place there. What do you think is different about the way this particular conflict is being conducted?
Well, I think there are several reasons why this particular conflict is enduring in the way that it has. Is that most of the conflict is happening in regions that are inaccessible. There's an international kind of lethargy in the way that they have been dealing with the problem, and the overall pressure on the Congolese government to have any effective control over their troops in the areas where the conflict is manifesting itself is also a major problem. So there are many factors that make this conflict endure in the way that it has.
Well, let me ask you to answer an email question we got here, Marcus, that came in from a viewer by the name of Kasi Chipoka, who suggests a course of action. Kasi writes in saying, the world needs to know what's happening in the DRC and give the plight of women priority. Intervention is the only solution here. I mean, from what you see, who could intervene effectively? What mandate could they have?
I think it's a little bit more complicated than intervention. We have already UN troops on the ground. In some cases they are effective, in some cases they're drastically ineffective. And that has been a major problem in the past, in that the areas, even where the UN troops are controlling, they haven't really been as effective as they could have been. They haven't been in areas where, or they haven't been as probing as they should be. I was in DRC just last month, in the northeastern part, actually, in an area where the Lord's Resistance Army are very, very active, abducting children, abducting women, raping women for many, many months, many years. And the UN are patrolling the main streets of small villages, but not moving away from those main streets where the LRA are active and where most of the civilians are living. And so it's a huge problem that it's more the ineffectiveness of the international community. Intervention is not really an answer. International intervention is not really an answer here. The place is vast. The country is huge, and it's more diplomacy, it's more pressure, it's more pressure from international governments in terms of funding, because half the problem here is government-led. Remember that most of these, well, not most, but a lot of these places, the rapes are being committed by government soldiers. These are government soldiers that the international community is funding via the government of Kinshasa. So we have to understand that it's the international community that, in a way, has a responsibility to